The time when social networks have become an integral part of teenagers' daily lives has brought new threats and dangers, as the tragic story of Diamond Bradley reminds us. This young girl, like many others, was fond of communicating on the internet, not realizing that attractive online personalities could be real monsters. Diamond Marsh Bradley was born on March 21, 2001 in Clarksville, Tennessee. She was the younger sister of Daquan, who was 3 years older than her. At some point, their parents Doris and Philip decided to divorce, and Doris decided to move Daquan and Diamond to the small town of Spring Valley, Illinois, where their relatives lived. She wanted to provide the children with a calmer and safer environment away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Spring Valley is a quiet town located along the Illinois River. In 2002, its population barely reached 5,000, and it hasn't grown much since. There were no large shopping centers or skyscrapers, but instead the residents built a tight-knit community, relying on each other for support. Doris got a job as a cook in a retirement home where she worked for over 15 years, providing for her children's needs. Over time, when Doris was unable to be there, Daquan became a guardian, mentor, and big brother to Diamond, establishing a deep connection with her that has grown into a lasting friendship over the years. Diamond also spent a lot of time with her cousin Giovanna, whose resemblance was so striking that many people confused them for twins. Doris later gave birth to 2 more children, a girl named Malia and a boy named Quentin. Despite Spring Valley's idyllic conditions for raising children, its main drawback was the lack of entertainment for teenagers. Diamond was a typical girl who loved to sing, dance, play with her siblings, and organize photo shoots. She also spent a lot of time on the internet, as social media and smartphones were becoming increasingly popular among young people. Gradually, Diamond began to actively communicate with other users online, looking for company, entertainment, and communication. By 2014, when she was about 13 years old, she began actively posting various content on her social media page. Diamond shared details of her personal relationships, invitations to meet up, expressed her love for her family and admiration for her mother, whom she considered the best in the world. Sometimes she was looking for advice or just sharing her thoughts. Throughout her teenage years, Diamond experienced the emotional changes inherent in the journey from childhood to adulthood. There were times when she felt a severe lack of trust or an overwhelming desire to confide in someone. Although Doris and other family members interacted with her posts, Diamond often sought attention from other social media users. Due to the limited amount of entertainment in Spring Valley, she began to develop an interest in boys, and social media became a kind of digital diary for her. She regularly updated her thoughts, publishing several posts a day. Her posts made it easy to follow how the life and thoughts of this teenage girl were developing at the time. She valued and respected her family, but sometimes felt deeply lonely, looking for an interlocutor in the online community. She openly admitted to not having any friends. She wanted affection. She needed someone to whom she could confide her innermost thoughts and feelings. Of course, social networks reflected only a part of a person's real life. However, they did give an idea of what this young lady was worried about and concerned about. At the time, Diamond was a high school student and had recently started dating Nicholas Nelson. They seemed like a cute couple, spending a lot of time together, and seemed to be really in love with each other. Diamond didn't like school. In the fall of 2017, she intended to graduate through a special program, passing her exams. Despite her young age, she had great ambitions. She had deep compassion and wanted to pursue a career as a nurse. On January 23, 2018, the Bradley home was crowded and noisy as friends and family gathered to celebrate Doris's birthday. The night was full of love and joy. There was a birthday cake, music was playing, and everyone was enjoying the company of loved ones. Doris had no idea that in less than 24 hours her life would be shattered. That night, after 10 p.m., the guests began to leave, and Doris told her daughter that she was going to bed. Diamond said goodbye to her mother and went to take a shower. Doris usually woke up a little before 7 a.m., prepared breakfast, and sent her younger children to school. She expected her eldest daughter to be up and about by this time, but Diamond was nowhere to be found. Her upstairs room was empty. At first, Doris was not concerned, thinking that her daughter might have run out to get her morning coffee at the nearest gas station, as she often did. However, As time passed and Diamond did not return, Doris's anxiety grew. Diamond didn't have her own transportation, and it was a wet, windy winter outside. Not the weather for walking. Doris's attempts to contact her daughter by phone were in vain. The calls went straight to voicemail, which was very unusual for Diamond. Around 8:30, Daquan, who was living separately due to his busy schedule, visited them as they had agreed. The absence of any response from Diamond to numerous calls and messages worried him and his mother, as she never bothered them on purpose. With each passing hour, their concern grew, and despite all attempts to contact Diamond's friends, no one had any information about her whereabouts. Daquan traveled all over the city looking for his sister, but there were almost no places to hide in their small town. Doris was overwhelmed by a variety of emotions: fear, anger, and terrible premonitions of the worst. Diamond had never disappeared without a word before. Doris's anxiety became unbearable, and when all options were exhausted, at 6 p.m. she was forced to report her daughter's disappearance to the police. Law enforcement officials first focused on tracking Diamond's cell phone activity. After contacting her service provider, they found out that the phone's last known location was 8 kilometers northwest of the nearest cell tower in Tonopah, Illinois. However, this information only gave an approximate search area without providing exact coordinates, so Diamond's whereabouts remained unknown. After 7:18 a.m., her phone either ran out of power or was intentionally turned off, as it has not sent any signal since then, and Diamond has not been on social media. Doris hoped that her daughter might have told her cousin Giovanna, whom she often confided her innermost thoughts to, about her plans. However, Giovanna was unable to provide any information about Diamond's intentions the morning after their last conversation that evening. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Giovanna decided to reveal to Doris an important secret to Doris. Diamond had a second phone hidden from her family to access the internet via Wi-Fi. Daquan accidentally found this phone, password protected and without a SIM card, in a dresser drawer. This discovery came as a shock to Doris, who had no idea about her daughter's second secret phone. Realizing the urgent need for any clues, she immediately handed the device over to the police in the hope that it would help solve the mystery of Diamond's disappearance. After examining the phone, law enforcement officials concluded that the device had been used for certain activities that Diamond did not want her mother to know about. Although each application required a separate password, the lock screen showed notifications with numerous invitations to meet Diamond from various people. The investigation revealed that the 16-year-old was using the phone to communicate on dating sites, which came as a real shock to Doris. She had no idea about her daughter's secret life on the internet. As Giovanna later told us, Diamond was interested in making money by meeting men for financial rewards. Doris felt like a terrible mother, not knowing that her underage daughter could be involved in such activities. Daquan, however, had a different view. Their mother had always been able to combine strictness with giving her children some freedom. Probably, Diamond simply did not realize the danger of such meetings. Perhaps she was hoping that she would only be paid to spend time on dates, especially with older men who she thought would be more financially generous. Deep down, she was exploring life with the naivety of youth, unaware of the dangers that could lurk on these platforms, the unseen threat from those who seek to exploit the most vulnerable. The temptation of easy money for spending time on dates was a dangerous curiosity. The police realized that many young people in Spring Valley were caught in a monotonous net where their main fascination was the digital world, which their guardians barely touched. This disconnect left many parents unaware of the digital dangers their children faced on a daily basis. Because of the growing concern, local police sought the assistance of the FBI, using their advanced resources to access and analyze data from Diamond's primary phone in order to recreate her movements on the day she disappeared. This cooperation yielded results. They were able to track Diamond's route, which indicated that she was traveling by car at high speed. A thorough review of CCTV in the area revealed 13 vehicles, but poor image quality made it impossible to recognize license plates. Using an inventive approach, the police placed a patrol car with a dash cam at a strategic intersection. After 2 days of surveillance, they were able to filter out the vehicles that frequently passed by, identifying a red pickup truck and a black SUV that were no longer seen in the area. Lacking direct evidence to prioritize these vehicles, law enforcement decided to narrow their focus methodically, starting with them. Further review of the video linked the black Range Rover to another location on Diamond's last known route, focusing the investigation on that location. At the same time, detectives studied Diamond's digital footprints, analyzing her correspondence on dating apps and social networks. The final message sent by Diamond on the morning of her disappearance to a 26-year-old man named Gerald, or Jay as his friends called him, was the decisive one. During the investigation, this Jay admitted to a romantic relationship with Diamond, but stated that he had stopped contact after learning her true age. On the morning of January 24th at 6 a.m., Diamond invited Jay to meet her at the IHOP restaurant. However, almost immediately she withdrew the invitation, apologizing and saying that the message was addressed to someone else. Jay responded with an emoji with a smile. At 6:40 a.m., he received an alarming message from Diamond. "I'm dying." Upon learning that Jay was the last person her 16-year-old daughter had contacted, Doris was overcome with anger and despair, accusing him of harming her child. In her grief, she was ready to blame any suspect. However, Jay provided a convincing alibi, claiming that he had been at home all night playing video games in the presence of a female companion. Initially, he did not want to reveal her identity, but under pressure, it turned out that this woman was none other than Giovanna, Diamond's cousin, which added confusion to the investigation but did not advance the search for the girl. Turning their attention back to the black SUV, investigators discovered additional video footage of the vehicle on the road to Putnam County. It was there that the sign from Diamond's phone disappeared, either due to a power outage or a dead battery. This vehicle became the key to finding out Diamond's fate. Unfortunately, the situation was further escalated when on January 27th, 3 days after Diamond was reported missing, the Putnam County Sheriff's Department received an important call around noon that indicated a tragic turn in the search for the missing girl. A passerby walking along the Pebble Trail in Granville County had discovered the body of a young woman in a ditch by the road. Upon arriving, the Putnam police chief immediately realized that it was a foul play. The body had numerous wounds on the back, abdomen, legs, arms, and hands. The police chief remembered that a girl of the same description as the deceased had been reported missing in Spring Valley and immediately called there. The area was rural, with snow-covered cornfields stretching around it, and the nearest housing was several miles away. Diamond Bradley's body was partially submerged in water as a stream ran through the area. Signs of fierce resistance indicated that the girl had put up a desperate fight to the last. After the horrific discovery that Diamond Bradley had been murdered, the senior detective made the sad trip to the Bradley home with the difficult task of breaking the tragic news to the family. As soon as the police arrived on the doorstep at around 7 p.m., Doris felt a terrible premonition of grief, a mother's intuition. Her despair, even before the news was announced, spoke volumes. Daquan's return to his home, shrouded in grief, forced him to confront a reality far removed from his hopes for his sister's return. The realization that Diamond had been found dead was so overwhelming that he fainted, a tribute to the strong bonds of brotherhood and the unfulfilled promises he had made to himself. When the terrible news spread through the small town, every resident was extremely upset. The thought that their children could now walk the streets freely filled them with terror. What if the monster is still around and hunting for its next victim? The investigative team carefully studied the CCTV footage of the black SUV. To narrow down the search, the police consulted a workshop that specializes in such car models. The technician carefully examined the video and confidently identified the car as a certain model line and year of manufacture of the Wrangler Jeep. Armed with these details, the officers entered the data into their databases, searching for addresses and names of owners of similar Jeeps in the area. After checking with a number of owners of similar Jeeps, the officers came across a residence a few kilometers north of where Diamond's body was found. The woman who answered the door said that the owner of the Black Ranger had moved to another municipality, Stendard, but she did not know his new address. Stendard, located only 2 miles away and with a population of about 200, did not seem difficult to find. Driving through the neighborhood, police spotted a black Range Rover Jeep in the driveway of a house. The car belonged to 26-year-old Richard Henderson, who had indeed driven into Spring Valley on January 24th and stopped at a gas station across from Bradley's house, as evidenced by surveillance video. At first, he claimed to have dropped Diamond off at a mobile home park, but this version contradicted the evidence of her phone's location. During a ride with detectives along the route Henderson and Diamond had traveled that day, he admitted to meeting the girl. Their initial plans did not go through. During a ride with the detectives along the route Henderson and Diamond were traveling that day, he admitted to meeting the girl. Their initial plans did not go through. Henderson claimed to have left Diamond at a mobile home park, the location of which contradicted the trajectory of Diamond's phone. This discrepancy led to suspicions of phone theft or lying. With the opportunity to obtain a full confession, detectives offered Henderson a ride in a patrol car, recreating the route they had taken with Diamond on the day she disappeared. They left the station, passed the intersection captured on video, drove over a bridge, and ended up in rural Putnam County. The journey ended at the point where Diamond's phone signal was lost. The only remnants of the young girl were stuffed animals and artificial flowers on her memorial wreath by the creek, tragic signs left by her family. The bright flowers stood in stark contrast to the surrounding snowy white landscape. These things, like Diamond herself, were out of place here. The young gentle girl was abandoned in this hollow, her life bleeding out. When the detective asked Henderson if he recognized this place, he could not contain his emotions. Tears streamed down his face. Taking advantage of this emotional moment, the investigator urged him to tell what really happened. Henderson, overwhelmed with grief, looked away from the monument, sobbing. His explanation was brief, and their meeting in this lonely place was intimate. Afterward, when Henderson asked her to leave the car, Diamond refused and instead pulled out a knife. A struggle ensued, during which, according to Henderson, he acted in self-defense. He claimed that when he tried to pull her hand away from the knife, the blades accidentally bit into her stomach. Despite this, Diamond allegedly continued to attack aggressively. Henderson admitted that he disarmed her and may have struck her twice, as he claimed, in self-defense, before leaving her in the ditch. However, the autopsy results contradicted his story, revealing more than 20 stab wounds on Diamond's body, including several on her back. At almost 1.8 meters tall and weighing twice as much as Diamond, who was barely over 1.5 meters, Henderson's explanation seemed absurd. He was a grown man confronting a child. By the time they started searching, Diamond was already dead. More than 200 people attended the funeral, including family, friends, peers, and teachers from Spring Valley High School. Doris decided to have her daughter's body cremated because she couldn't bear the thought of leaving her in a cemetery. So she carried Diamond's urn everywhere she went, including in the courtroom at Henderson's sentencing. Henderson entered into a plea agreement to avoid life in prison and was sentenced to 53 years without parole. Doris admitted that she had thoughts of suicide due to the unbearable absence of her daughter. However, her concern for her other children kept her from doing so. This is the end of the story. Doris admitted that she had thoughts of suicide because of the unbearable absence of her daughter. However, her concern for her other children kept her from doing so. The tragedy that befell the Bradley family is a reminder of the dangers that can lie in online interactions and online dating, especially for teenagers. This story highlights how young Diamond's naivety and curiosity, combined with her desire for attention and romantic relationships, led to a fatal encounter. Despite her mother's warnings to be careful when dealing with strangers, Diamond secretly engaged in risky activities on dating sites, where she crossed paths with Richard Henderson. Henderson's cruelty and ruthlessness toward a defenseless teenage girl shocked the entire town. The police investigation revealed the depth of the danger Diamond faced when she frivolously risked her own safety in search of attention and romance in the digital world. Her tragic fate was a bitter lesson in the need for caution, education, and parental supervision in the age of social media. Diamond's voice has been forever silenced, but her story continues to resonate as a warning to other teens and their families about the potential dangers that can lurk behind attractive online personas. Her memory remains a reminder of the price that can be paid for recklessness in the virtual world.